Is your job search stuck? Maybe you're not getting any interviews with employers, or maybe you are, but no job offers. Or you may be new and not even know where to start. This is Charles Max Wood, and I'm releasing a new course and ebook on how to find a job as a software developer. The course walks you through the process of finding the types of companies you want to work for, getting their attention, and putting your best foot forward as the candidate they want. I've coached dozens of developers in looking for jobs and have been able to help several people find jobs within 2 weeks to 2 months. So whether you're new to development, can't find a great job that fits what you want, or are looking for remote work from an area without a strong tech community, I can help. Go to getacoderjob.com and sign up today. Hey everybody, and welcome to another My JavaScript Story. This week we're talking to Christine Legge. Christine, do you want to say hi?
Hello.
Now, you were on episode 328 of JavaScript Jabber. We talked about functional programming and Lambda. Do you want to just remind people who you are real quick, and then we'll jump in and talk about you?
Sure. So I was on talking about Lambda. I had just started at that point, like maybe it was like 2 weeks in. I just started working at Google in New York. And prior to that, I was working at Zen Hub, which is a project management tool, kind of a startup in Vancouver. So when I was originally talking about Lambda, that was because I was using it at Zen Hub a lot. And now that I'm at Google, I don't use it anymore, but still enjoy learning about that type of stuff and talking about it.
Cool. Well, this show, we try and tell your story and give people an idea of where you've come from and how you learned to program and things like that. So let's start there. Let's start with how you got into programming.
Okay, so I actually in like high school and everything wasn't that interested in computers at all. My family didn't let us spend much time on the computer. My parents would limit us to like half an hour a day or something. And, you know, we couldn't use MSN or any of those things. We could just like check our email or whatever. So I had like absolutely no idea what programming was, let alone like I couldn't really do much on the computer at all. So when I graduated from high school, I wanted to do applied math. So I went into an engineering program at University of Toronto. And the goal was that I would do, like, it's like a general first 2 years, and then you specialize. So I was hoping to specialize in the applied math part of that. And for engineering, you have to take an introduction to programming class in first year. Mm-hmm. So I was actually like dreading this. There's like a 4-hour, I remember seeing on my schedule that I had a 4-hour computer science lab in the morning. And I was like, I can barely turn my computer on. So I actually ended up like hating the program, and I dropped out like 3 months into it or something. And the only class that I liked was the computer science class, which is not what I was expecting, because it was kind of similar. It was kind of the stuff that I liked about math, where like there's like a concrete answer and stuff like that, but it wasn't so, the math that we were doing was really theoretical, and I don't like that part of it. Like I like that practical applications, and obviously with like programming, you can see the practical applications of like the problem solving that you're doing. So I came back to Vancouver, and I said to my parents that I wanted an office job. I don't really know why I wanted an office job, but they said, you have to work, like dropped out of school, you got to work now. So I was like, hey, I'm going to get an office job. So I went to the YMCA career center by my house, and I went in there and I said, I want an office job. And the guy's like, what office job experience do you have? And I'd like worked at Canadian Tire and a garden store. And I was like, I don't have any. And he said, okay, we'll find anything that says will train for experience. So he found me this job that was basically just data entry. And it was myself and the founder of the company, the president of the company, who was a computer science guy. That was his background. And he hired me to do data entry. And when he interviewed me, he's like, oh, do you have any interest in programming? And I was like, oh, I actually did quite like the class that I did, but I don't have any experience. And he's like, okay, we'll hire you for data entry. And if you want to learn, then you can learn. So nice. Yeah. So I started working for him, and then he would do like 4 hours a week with me where he would teach me C#. And so then I did that, and then I ended up going back to school. and for computer science while I was still working there part-time. Yeah, so basically the guy from that job like got me into programming. I kind of did it backwards. Like I got the job first and then I was like, oh, sure, this looks fun.
So what was it that you enjoyed? I mean, you said that you liked seeing the outcome from your work, but was there more to it than that, or was that pretty much it?
That's pretty much it. I like the problem solving part of it. Like I like how you can break things down. The part that's interesting for me, I wouldn't say is like the technology necessarily. Like
Right.
I'm not that into like, I don't necessarily keep up to date on all the newest, trends and all these things, but I actually just like the problem solving part of it. So it's like, oh, you need to display this thing. So you get, data in some form, and then you have to kind of step by step break it down to get it into the thing, like, to transform it into something that's useful that you can display. I like that part of it the most. Especially when I started, that was what I liked. And yeah, the guy that I worked for, he wasn't the most up to date on any of the trends either. So I was really behind. Like we were making a desktop application and weren't using any like external libraries, right? I didn't even really know that those things like existed. So I just like the problem solving part, just like, yeah, writing code, I guess.
Cool. So you got in, you start doing C#, you're building this desktop app, you go back to school. So you got a 4-year degree in computer science?
Yeah. So I studied computer science and statistics, combined major.
Ah,
I haven't done much with the statistics part. I
gotcha.
would still like to.
I was going to say nerd, but anyway, so you graduate. How do you make the transition then from building desktop apps to building web apps?
So in my mind, I stayed while I was doing my degree. I'd work part-time for one company, and then during the summers I'd work there full-time. So I was originally doing like part data entry, and then started shifting more and more to doing development work. But I was only doing like basically like the client-facing part of this web application.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I thought that what computer science was like the back end, like, I don't know, setting up servers, and I really like didn't know anything about that at all. So I kind of thought that web development was like I don't really know how to describe it. That to me was like real computer science. Like I was like, if I know how to do web development, then I'll feel like a programmer and like I'll know all this like new stuff. So basically I worked there for that one company for 5 years, and then I thought it was time to branch out and learn something more. Like I thought that I kind of learned everything I needed to learn from there. So I started applying for internships. It was my last summer before, like I had one more semester left. So it was my last summer to get an internship. And so I got one at a company called Axiom Zen in Vancouver. And they hired me and they're like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to do web development, because this kind of seemed like a gap that I was missing. I don't really know. Yeah, I had done a class on web development, and my partner had done an internship previously with he was doing web development in his previous internship. So we had to work together and build like this really, really basic web app. And he basically just did the whole thing because it took him like, I don't know, like an hour to do it. Like he set up Bootstrap and like hooked up like the back end and the front end. And I remember just having no idea what was going on. And I was so intimidated working with him and being like, I don't know how, I don't even know what any of this stuff means. So I think that kind of drove me wanting to do web development. So I started at Axiom. So I said I have no experience, but that's what I want to do. And so they hired me on Zen Hub, which was the web application that the company had. And so I just basically got thrown in there day one. And they're like, okay, here you go, web development, time to learn JavaScript. I remember my first bug was like basically like realign something in CSS. Like it was like one line of CSS. It took me like 4 hours of like bashing my head. I didn't even understand like what the CSS part was. And I remember finally like my he was kind of my boss, but he sat beside me and I looked at him and I was like, I don't even know where to start. And he's like, so this is CSS, like,
Right.
here. So it started out like that, but I really ended up, I love JavaScript. I think JavaScript is really cool.
Cool. So what was it about JavaScript that really drew you in as opposed to C# or some of the other languages that you'd experienced?
It's much more simple. Like, I like how you can just run. You don't need much setup. Like, you could just run, like, a script and from top to bottom and it'll run. I'm currently working in TypeScript, and I used to like the lack of types in JavaScript, but now I like TypeScript even more. But anyways, I like how kind of free it is to do what you want. I like how you can I really like functional programming, so I like how that's easy to do with JavaScript. The other thing that I like is just how many, like open source libraries and like the big community. Maybe there's a big community for C#, but I don't know because I wasn't involved in it then. But like there's just I think there's so many applications for it, and I really like how basically how flexible the language is. Like you can kind of follow whatever paradigm you want with JavaScript. So you can do object-oriented programming with JavaScript. You can do functional programming with JavaScript. You can combine the two. You don't end up being like constrained by, what the language lets you or doesn't let you do.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so you get in, you start working on Zen Hub, you figure out this whole JavaScript thing. Were you doing back-end work too, or were you mostly focused on the front end?
I was mostly focused on the front end. I don't really know how that started. I think a couple of the first things I started working on was front end, and I was involved in, we refactored the front end from Backbone to React right when I started. So I was like really involved in that. So then I ended up being like more of kind of a go-to person on the team for, React Redux questions versus the back. And the state of the back end was a bit crazy also. So there's a lot of, like tribal knowledge or whatever they call it, where you have to kind of know how the backend works, like
right,
in order to work on it. So our backend was Node though, so it was also JavaScript.
Right.
But I did a little bit of work on it, but not much.
Cool. So what have you done in JavaScript that you're particularly proud of? I mean, I know you spoke at the conference and you've kind of been out there talking about Ramda. Are there other things that you've done that you're excited to share with us?
I mean, to be honest, no. So my involvement with like Ramda and stuff was kind of my first introduction to like what you can do with like your computer science knowledge outside of just like work at a job and write code and stuff. So my mentor at my old office, Pablo, he was the one that really encouraged me to like, oh, you should. He wrote a book on D3, and he knew D3, but he basically got contacted. He just kind of started, researching it a lot, and then eventually got contacted to write a book. And he's like, yeah, when I started writing the book, I didn't know anything about it. And to me, I kind of had thought that all these people that are experts, in my mind, they're just like experts forever. They were always experts, but everybody has to start somewhere. So that's what I was trying to do with those talks and stuff like that, and what I'm still trying to do. So it was a big move. I was focused on, for the last like 6-7 months, I've been focused on like moving. So I had the Google interview. I really wanted to move to New York. And so that consumed a lot of my time. So I was doing a lot of practice questions and stuff like that. And then I had to move. And so now that I'm back and settling in, I do really want to find, probably I won't stick with Ramda because I think that I learned what I wanted to learn from that and I'm not using it anymore. But I want to find a new technology that I'm working on or that's interesting to me in the open source community that I can kind of start, going deep into that and making like open source contributions and stuff. That's really interesting to me. And I think that's a cool part of computer science where you can make an impact like outside of your job really easily. Like it's super easy to just contribute to a library or learn about all these things. And so I don't have anything new that I've been working on. which is kind of unfortunate. I would like to, but that's definitely a goal for me in the next like couple months to get started on something new.
Yeah, well, given where I've been at lately, I definitely understand that sometimes you spend more time on life than you do on code. So
Yeah. Yeah, there's the balance in there somewhere that I haven't found yet since
well,
moving.
I think balance is an illusion. It's, am I able to take care of the things that I need to take care of? That's the balance, I guess. But
Yeah. Yeah, I think that though I was when I gave that talk at Developer Week, it was, I remember right before it was happening, like a couple hours before, and I was so stressed out and I was like, I'm never doing this again. Like this was, I can't do it again. I can't put myself through this. And then it was over. And then I was like, okay, like once a year, maybe I'll try and do it once a year. Because it's really, like I spent probably, I don't know, like a whole work week on the slides and, and on a demo and stuff. It was so much work and I was so stressed out. But it ended up being like really rewarding, and people, said they learned a lot from my talk and stuff like that, and people were really interested around us. So I was able to get people like excited. I was pretty proud of how that presentation turned out, and so I want to do something like that again.
Yeah.
I hope that wasn't the peak for me. That would be unfortunate.
No, it probably isn't. I mean, people, they have all kinds of experiences with stuff, and keep speaking, keep getting out there, because people are interested in different things, and you'll find different levels of payoff for different kinds of things.
Yeah.
So what you've been working on now mostly has just been moving and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Are there particular areas that you're looking forward to diving back into?
Yeah, so I have been learning. So the project I'm working on right now, we're using TypeScript, which I mentioned, and Angular, like Angular 2, or like the newest Angular.
Right.
And RxJS, which is like a reactive programming library. So Angular is like very interesting to me. And the thing that is particularly interesting that I think like I kind of have thought of, like very high level thought about like trying to dive into, is the dependency injection in Angular. That's like a thing that people that use Angular are always like, what is this? Like, what is going on here? I think that's like kind of a confusing part of Angular for a lot of users. When I started reading about it at first, that was what I like remember taking away, being like, they use this weird dependency injection, but like other than that, it's easy to use. But the dependency injection is it's kind of similar to how people work at Google. So I feel like with that knowledge, and then learning Angular for the first time, that I could try and get a good perspective on being able to explain dependency injection in a more straightforward way. So I'm kind of thinking about that as a potential thing to really like go deep into. And then TypeScript, like I really like TypeScript. We use TypeScript and I'm using VS Code, and then combined you get like the IDE is really nice. So like when you can hover over something and see what type it's supposed to return, it just actually makes my life so much easier. I never thought that it would. I was just like, JavaScript is the best thing ever. And now I'm using TypeScript and I'm like, well, actually, maybe not.
Yeah, that makes sense. I really dig TypeScript myself, and I've used Angular off and on for a while. We have a podcast about Angular on the network. So, I've dug into it when I have time. And yeah, it's terrific stuff. I'm curious, have you looked at resources as far as picking it up? Is there something that you're thinking, oh, this is the way to go?
No, I mean, I read the documentation. I haven't, that's what I'm starting to, it's not that easy to, there doesn't seem to be, like for React, I remember that I just read the React documentation. Like there's one page in particular that like everything leads, like if you, any like search leads back to this page. But for Angular, I don't find that there's a source that's as clear as the React one. Like I have difficulty finding like stuff about the templates. There's a lot of like keywords and stuff like that that I find that there's not really like, I haven't really found a central source that actually talks about all the keywords that you can use. And so I end up like a combination of like the docs and then like Stack Overflow examples. But I haven't actually found like a single source. I mean, the docs are okay to get started. Like I had read those to get started, but I didn't find that they were enough.
Yeah, that makes sense. One thing that helped me when I was getting started, I'll just throw in here, and this is about your story, but I think it's something that will help people if you're trying to get into Angular, is I went and worked through the Tour of Heroes tutorial.
Oh.
And that really kind of helped me get a handle on what was going on and how everything fit together.
Yeah, I should check that out.
Yeah, and it's in the Angular documentation. It's at, I think, angular.io/tutorial.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. It's hard to I find when I'm starting a new job, like I want to like get work out quickly, like you know, get my first like you know, contributions in there. So then I end up just like trying like looking for like very specific answers to my Angular questions, and then I don't actually really learn that much about it. So that's what I want to start focusing on now, is like a high level how this stuff works, and then I can start, you know, not just for like my very, very specific use cases. And then I think I could start, you know, learning more about it and potentially something to like share my knowledge with later. But I think the cool thing about working here is that you can kind of, you can, you know, talk to the people that are working on Angular and get some insight that way. I'm sure like you can try and, you know, spend some time working on it if you wanted to. I haven't looked into that yet because I just started, but that's something that I would like to do.
Yep, absolutely. And I found that most core teams for most projects like Angular are pretty approachable. So
yeah. I mean, people, that's the nice thing about, you know, like the communities and stuff, is I feel like people want you to use their stuff. So it's in their best interest to, you know, make it help you to use it.
Yep, absolutely. Well, cool. So do you have another talk in mind when you go start, you know, getting out there and getting ready to go again? Or
no, I have a list. My list has one thing on it right now, and it's Angular dependency injection, but I don't know. I was thinking, so that's up there. Some other things I was thinking about, something to do with TypeScript. This React or RxJS reactive programming library, that's kind of interesting. I don't know much about reactive programming, so that could also be an interesting route to go down, like talking about reactive programming, because I did functional programming, and now I could try and go down reactive programming, but I don't think I like it enough yet. I don't really, it's a bit hard to use. So I'm not convinced that I'd be able to sell it.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the RxJS documentation, but I understand that it's reasonably easy to pick up. And Ben Lesh, who is the main developer for RxJS, joined the Angular team a few months ago. And so,
I didn't know that. Yeah, it's like promises. It's just a lot of promises is kind of how I've tried to like when I'm trying to figure out how I do something, I can often try and think about it like how it would work, how this would work if it was a promise, and then I can usually get somewhere.
Yeah, the approach is a little bit different, but it's just kind of the same idea because it's asynchronous events and things like that. But yeah, I
would like to look into that more. That's I think the top on my list of potential next talks would be something to do with Angular and something to do with RxJS, but this is like a very high level. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of would be good to make connections like within the office to see if, you know, people would want to, you know, partner up on, you know, learning that way rather than me just, you know, doing it by myself. It doesn't really make sense to try and learn this by myself when I'm working in the building where the people that wrote the thing are. Like that doesn't, you know, that seems like a bit of I'd waste time, I think.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So I should working on those connections would be good.
Definitely. Well, if I can help you out with that, let me know.
Oh, for sure. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and do some picks. Do you have some things you want to shout out about on this show? Do you run your own freelance business? Or maybe you're thinking about picking up some business on the side? Well, then you need FreshBooks. FreshBooks is the quickest and easiest way to get invoices out to your clients. It's easy to use. It works anywhere, available from any device on the desktop, iPhone, iPad, Android, and all of your data is backed up and secure. And it makes it really easy to get organized and get paid. You'll be tracking time, logging expenses, and invoicing your clients in no time. You can also save time billing, freeing up several days per month to focus on the work that you love, and you get paid faster. FreshBooks customers are paid on average 5 days faster because there's a link on the invoice that says pay me now. And it's a great way to grow your business. Plus, FreshBooks is offering a 30-day trial. That's right, 30-day trial if you try them out. So go to gofreshbooks.com/devchat and enter devchat in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Once again, for a 30-day trial, go to gofreshbooks.com/devchat and enter devchat in the How Did You Hear About Us section.
Yeah, sure. So I've binge listened to a podcast called The Pitch. It's they describe it, or people describe it as Dragon's Den, but podcast form. I never watched Dragon's Den. Basically, you have actual investors, either angel investors or investors from funds, and then people with their business. So they come on, they pitch their business to there's 4 investors, and then they ask questions, and then they do or do not invest. And then they follow, the end of the episode, they'll always follow up. So after due diligence, often it doesn't work out. But the thing that's cool about it is, now that I'm not really working in a startup now, listening to the startup mentality, I think is super cool. These people are so excited about their project and working super hard to get it off the ground. And that's really cool and inspiring. So I've been listening to so many of those episodes. That's a podcast by Gimlet Media, which I love, all their podcasts. And now that I'm in New York, I want to go knock on their office door and see it. I'm just obsessed with Gimlet. I think their podcasts are really good. If anyone from Gimlet is listening to this, let me in. Let me meet all the cool people that work there. But anyways, so that's really cool. The other thing that I've been listening to is How I Built This. That's an NPR podcast. And it's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum to The Pitch, because on How I Built This, they interview people that have built successful brands. So the one I was listening to this morning was the guy that founded WeWork, or there's a guy that founded Lyft, or Steve Madden, Lonely Planet. And so it's kind of interesting to listen to the pitch, and in contrast with How I Built This, because it's how the people on How I Built This are the people from the pitch that succeeded. And it's listening to how hard these people had to hustle, and how hard they worked, how scrappy they were to get their businesses off the ground is just insane. I have so much admiration for those people, and it is really inspiring, I feel for me to just
awesome.
Yeah, so that's really, I love those podcasts right now.
Yeah, it sounds like Shark Tank a little bit.
I've never seen it, so I don't know. But I think that's the idea.
Makes sense. Yeah. I've been going through some of the startup life, so I get some of that. But yeah, it sounds interesting. I might have to pick some of those up.
Yeah, there's Gimlet also makes one called Startup. That's good too.
Yeah, I remember when Gimlet split off from NPR. I can't remember the founder's name, but he was an NPR person. Alex Bloomberg. Yep. And he kind of went off and did his own thing. Yeah,
it sounds like it's successful. They have lots of really good podcasts, but I don't know, because I listen to them. So then you think that it's really successful.
Yeah, well, they're still in business, so.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to jump in here with a few picks. So yeah, I've really been enjoying Visual Studio Code. You mentioned that on the show.
Yeah.
I just went through a minor issue with it where I upgraded my machine to Mac OS Mojave. I'm on the beta of Mojave because it's not out yet. It'll come out before this goes live, so people are going to be like, "What? You're still on the beta?" No, I'm not still on the beta when it goes live, when it comes out live. But I had reasons for upgrading, and so I did. And it couldn't find Git, and so I had to upgrade my Xcode command line tools. and then it worked.
Oh, interesting.
Anyway, so yeah, Git is back. And then I'm also going to pick my calendar software just because people ask me all the time, how I manage all of the things I have going on. I mean, last week I recorded, I think, 17 podcast episodes. Today I have done 5. And over the course of the week, I will have recorded probably another 7 or 8.
A lot of podcast episodes.
Yeah. Of course, the week after that, I'm going to Microsoft Ignite, and I'll be doing podcast episodes there. Microsoft has flown me out to several of their events, and then I've interviewed people for the podcast there. But it'll be a little different because I'll be doing it live, but that's always fun. So, yeah. Anyway, I use BusyCal, and it hooks up to Google Calendar. So I've just been using Google Calendar and BusyCal, and it's pretty awesome. I've been pretty happy with that. One other thing, a lot of people have been asking me how I schedule the podcasts, and we just switched. We were using Schedule once before, but Google Calendar actually added appointment slots. And so you booked through Schedule once, but from here on in, people are going to be booking on the shows with Google Calendar until I get my podcasting software together, and then they'll be using that instead. So anyway, it's a feature. You just set up an appointment on your calendar, and then you tell it that it's appointment slots instead of event. And then it'll ask you how many appointments you want in there, and it just kind of runs. So it's been pretty cool.
What does the BusyCal do that Calendar doesn't do?
Well, it's a local app, and the view on the week is just a little bit easier to deal with. So, yeah. And I don't have to have it open in the browser. Because I also have a plugin. Maybe I'll pick this too. I have a plugin called Tab Wrangler, and it shuts tabs down that I'm not using. And so I'd have to open up the calendar whenever I wanted it instead of just going to the screen that it's on and then using the Mac OS, I forget what they call it, but it's the different views. So you hit Control right or left because I have my calendar full screened and it'll just bring it over so I can see it. So yeah, when I'm canceling or rescheduling, I usually do it through the web app because it gives me the chance to give people a reason for why I'm canceling or moving stuff. And BusyCal doesn't have that feature yet, but just looking at the calendar, it's really nice because it just pulls it in and lets me see what's going on. So
cool.
Anyway, those are my picks. If people want to find you online, where do they go?
GitHub is Legge, CHR, LEGGECHR. Same with Twitter. I'm not very active though.
Okay.
But those are the places to go. I'll like if people send me messages and stuff on Twitter, I'll get them, but I just don't post. Basically. So yeah, that's the maybe I should start posting. I like Twitter. I'm kind of a Twitter fan, but I haven't started using it yet.
Yeah, I like Twitter. My problem is that I wind up spending a ton of time. I get lost in Twitter instead of done. So
I only downloaded Twitter like in February because for my presentation on Ramda, I was using the Twitter API. That's the only reason why I got Twitter. So I'm like about 5 years late to the party, but I kind of like it.
Nice. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end the episode, but thank you for coming.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Bandwidth for this segment is provided by CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Deliver your content fast with CacheFly. Visit CACHEFLY.com to learn more.